What's going on, everybody? Gaming Diva here, and today is a beautiful day, walking around my apartment complex, touching grass. Hold on, gotta touch the grass, touch the grass, touching grass, getting my 5K walk in, and just enjoy the great outdoors with your girl. Come walk with me while I yap about things that's been going on in my life, and how I've been able to, I guess, cope with my new normal. So, last video, I talked about, caretaking for my mom. So I've been doing that for like about almost 3 years. Yeah. Or actually, it's 3 years now, because it was around about this time 3 years ago when my mom was randomly getting up out of the bed and, trying to use the bathroom, and she was falling and landing on her knee. So that's where it all started. But I talked about caretaking. I talked about I didn't really go into depth detail of it, because at the moment I am caretaking for my mom, but not in a official capacity just yet. But I'm gonna get to that. So I got some good news with that. All right. Got some good news with that. And now I'm just waiting for the caseworker to go out in the field and evaluate my mom to see like how many hours per day or per week that she will need as far as assistance. And basically, then I will be getting officially paid for taking care of my own mother. So, those of you, you're probably wondering, how does one go about doing that? Well, for me, I can only speak for me. I have, in my extended family, my in-laws, a cousin on my husband's side of the family is caretaking for their loved ones. And I called and asked her, how does one go about officially caretaking? Because, when you're caretaking for another person who is older, that could be like a lot of money and resources. So, and then, too, after a while, even if your loved one is on insurance, or that pays like 80 or 90% of the cost, at some point that insurance is going to run out for that fiscal year, and then you're going to have to end up paying out of pocket, right? So me kind of thinking ahead. So typically, usually during school, like when school is in, usually I'm substitute teaching and helping neurodivergent children, people, kids that's on the spectrum, or maybe even students that need like a little bit one-on-one time, one-on-one extra time in the classroom to help complete their assignments. So I've been doing that for like the past 3 years, as far as like work is concerned. But it's not a consistent schedule, because I can choose when I work as far as being a substitute teacher. So let's say, for example, right, if I know I have to go caretake for my mom, I don't have to log into the system to take on an assignment that's within my area. So been doing that. But now that right now we're your school is out. So typically when school is out, I chill, I rest, I really hardcore stream, create content, get a couple of extra coins. That is if I go hard on the purple app. So with that, that's like if I'm lucky, and that is if I stream every single day, and that is if I'm doing like some type of event like a subathon, marathon, 24-hour stream type situation. I would have to consistently do that just in order to hit the bare minimum of like $50 to cash it out. But hey, $50 ain't nothing to sleep on. That could be medicine for my mom. That could be gas, especially with the gas prices, going out of control. But it's not enough and not consistent. So that on top of with me still trying to grow my audience, growing my audience on the purple app, on here on YouTube and other places. But I also know the reality. I know the reality that a lot of people is into a lot of dumb shit that's on the internet right now. And low attention spans. So for older individuals such as myself, it's a little bit hard to kind of break out or to grow in an oversaturated market. But it's kind of my own fault, really. It is and it isn't. I feel like if I would have stayed consistent after certain events, I think my channel, my growth would be way more than what it is now. Oh, no, son, do not come out. Do not come out, please. I need you to stay tucked behind the clouds. Because yesterday, that heat, oh my goodness, this Texas heat, damn near took me out. Took me out. But gotta get it in, gotta get the sweat. And then game 4 is tonight. Let's go Spurs. I ain't gonna lie, I'm a Dallas Mavericks fan, but I'm a fan of my favorite players. I'm also a fan of any and all things Texas teams. So, since my Mavericks isn't in it, and I'm not gonna lie, I like New York Knicks. So for me, although I would love my San Antonio Spurs to win and take the series, I would be okay with the Knicks winning it. It's a bunch of talented guys that's on the Knicks. Anyway, so I digress. What I was about to say, oh Lord. So, anywho, just enjoying the sunshine. Oh, caretaking. So yeah. So basically, she put me on, a member of my family that's on my husband's side of the family. Basically, what you have to do in order to caretake officially in a capacity is And this is something just to put out there. So those of you that's looking for part-time, full-time work, and if you're loving, compassionate, you care about people, you want to help people, then this will be the job for you. Because, and people that went to school for physical therapy, you know, rehabbing people back to health. Because right now, there is a huge need for caretakers and physical therapists to help people get back on their feet. And the reason why I know this is because during that process of me trying to get my mom home healthcare services, as well as physical therapists for occupational and physical therapy, a lot of these places that I called, they're understaffed. And a few of those places, I love that they were transparent with that fact, because those of you that may not be in the know, if your loved one or if you yourself becomes injured and you got to rehab yourself back to, you know, after you leave the hospital and be treated as an outpatient, basically, if you have insurance, whether it be private, like Medicare or Medicaid, doesn't matter, right? If you start your service with somebody that's offering physical therapy and they don't have the staff to cover, that's going to leave a gap in your services. So what I mean by that is, one place that I called to get my mom physical therapy, occupational therapy, because I think she needs both, is the company I called. They said, hey, we are severely understaffed and we don't want to take, you know, your mom's insurance, because if we did, it would, like, she would go probably days or weeks without seeing a physical therapist, because they only had, you know, so many physical therapists to, I guess, a client ratio. And I was like, yeah, we're not gonna do that. Oh, that reminds me, because last video I was so out of breath, it was hot, and I had to listen to my body and stop walking because this Texas dry ass heat, and now the sun's coming out. I'm like, Lord Jesus, whew. But I gotta get it in, no excuses. So, and it just feels good to be outside the house, you know. Make sure, no matter what's going on with you, like, I know at times things could be so overwhelming, you know, bills, relationships, deaths in families, work, kids, marriage, relationship, partnership, like whatever you want to call it. Things could be so fucking overwhelming to the point to where you forget to take some days off, take the time out to take care of you, right? And you need that. You need to be able to have self-care days, making sure you're working out, making sure you're eating right, making sure you're taking care of your hygiene, making sure you're keeping your space and your area clean. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because me speaking from experience, dealing with my new normal of, man, getting over that feeling of the feelings I was feeling, resentment, disappointment, sadness. Like, I was trying to figure out, how could I help my mom? How could I help my dad now that we've reconnected? How can I help my uncle while also maintaining my own marriage, my own household? And that's a lot, being responsible for 4 households. Okay? And I'm not gonna lie, I was feeling very stressed, very anxious, nervous, frustrated. And at times, after dealing with taking care of my mom's business, my uncle's business, visiting my dad, and then coming home to be a mom, to be a wife, I was just mentally and physically checked out. Which is why I hadn't streamed for a very long time, because I was trying to figure out solutions and what can I do to help my mom? What can I do to get my uncle the resources that he needs? All right. What's going on with my dad? All right. And then working with my other brother and my dad's brother to figure out what's going to be like the best cure, best course of action for my dad. Because my father, he was in a skilled nursing facility, and then he got sick real bad. At least for the last 6 months, or for the last year, he's been in and out of the skilled nursing home and in hospitals. So this more recent trip that I visited him, he had a trach in his neck. He had a feeding tube up his nose. He has like a bunch of different ailments going on with him. And then my brother's telling me, hey, they want to transfer dad to a long-term care hospital, which makes sense because it's like, with everything he got going on, a skilled nursing facility doesn't have the tools or the equipment or the resources to help my father with the things that he needs. So after figuring that part out, and after my dad has been moved, I'm like, okay, dad is okay for now. Check. Mom is okay for now. Check. And then more recently, dealing with an older adult who has never been properly diagnosed for autism spectrum disorder. And then also, he had been depressed for over 20 plus years. And then taking care of his mom and dad to the best of his ability with all those different intellectual disorders. And on top of depression, he did the best he could. And I tell y'all, depression is a mug, y'all. Mental health, very serious. You gotta take it serious. Because if not, you'll wake up one day and you'll be like, man, how did I get here? How did I let myself go? How did I let my how did I allow myself to get to this point that where I'm at? And best thing I can say is, when life be lifing, you're not really thinking about a whole lot of different things. You're just thinking about, man, how can I survive the day? How can I get through the day? And for me, it was like, damn, how do I help myself while I help the people who are dependent on me? And one of those biggest common denominators is health. Physically, staying physically healthy. Because, now don't get me wrong, for me, I have always been the healthy athletic type. Not gonna lie. There are major changes I made to my diet. I've already lost 20 pounds. You know what I'm saying? Yay, 20 pounds. And that's the reason why I'm walking in this hot ass Texas heat, because it's helping me sweat. I'm taking my Black Girl vitamins. Shout out to Black Girl vitamins. And that's helping me in the areas where a lot of black people are deficient in, which is vitamin D, magnesium, iron. So I've been taking been doing my detoxes, my feet detoxes, the ionic pull thing where the toxins come out through your feet. I do that every 3 days. Trying to lay off soda, but as far as that progress is concerned, I've gotten it to where I drink 1 soda a day or every other day, because that's like one of the biggest things is like, you know, controlling those sugar cravings, not eating too late at night. So me, I'll typically intermediate fast. Like right now, I haven't eaten anything. I got up and just started my walk on an empty stomach. But after this walk and some little light exercises to kind of tone up where I might have like some loose skin or where I might need to firm it up, which will, I know is like, it'll be my stomach and my arms for sure. But that's okay. So I know I'm bouncing all over the place, but you know, excuse my ADHD. But going back to my uncle. So more recently, I relocated my uncle close nearby to where I am. My dad, the long-term hospital that he's staying at is literally 10 minutes away from me. My uncle's 5 minutes away. The person who's the farthest out is my mom, which is 30 minutes, give or take traffic. And so like, she's the furthest out, but still able to get to her if I need to get to her. And my other brother stays with her, who's also on the spectrum, neurodivergent. He's been like that since childhood. But yeah, well, my uncle, he never got properly diagnosed as a child. Because, you know, my grandparents, my mom and my uncle's mom and dad, you know, when a lot of these disorders and mental diseases and things of that nature was appearing, they didn't know what these illnesses were, intellectual disabilities were, back in the 1929s, 1930s. They didn't know that. So like, when you have old school parents like that, like my mom and my uncle had, you know, one thing I can say though, the thing that I think I wish that my grandmother, because I'm not gonna say my grandfather, but well, I'm gonna put them both in there. And the reason why I say I'm not gonna put my grandfather there is because my grandfather was never really, according to my mom, my grandfather was always working, providing for the family, and my grandmother was a stay-at-home housewife. So I think my grandmother probably had maybe 2 or 3 jobs ever in her lifetime, and she stayed at home and took care of the house, took care of the kids, you know, while my grandfather worked. But me being a person that teaches and helps children that have intellectual disabilities, as well as tutoring one-on-one students that might need like a little extra help in the classroom, whether it be like with reading, writing, math. That's what I do. I come inside the classroom. It also depends on the assignment too. So there's some assignments where I'm literally helping the neurodivergent kids that's a little bit worse off on the spectrum, that might need, diapers, that might need help with feeding. They might be in a chair, so you might have to push them around for their outside activities, stuff like that. So like, I've took on assignments where I'm doing stuff like that, but I'm also helping, people who are not neurodivergent or as neurodivergent, like more functioning, right? So with those students, I would go into a classroom maybe for 15, 20, 30 minutes, depending on the school, depending on how many kids that needs to be seen. So I'll be in a classroom working with that one student anywhere from 15 minutes to 30 minutes at a time. And then I'll switch, look at my schedule, and I go to the next classroom. And your job is to kind of sit there and monitor and see what they're doing. Like, you're basically their one-on-one tutor in the classroom while class is in session. So, and then I worked with students that are nonverbal. So in that classroom setting, they are doing work in 15-minute gaps. They have to do work in 15-minute gaps and then take breaks, because a lot of them is very sensitive to sound and noises. Other students like to, run about the classroom. They have the wiggles really bad to where they can't sit still or focus. So yeah, I've been in all those different types of classrooms. But anyway, the challenge right now with my uncle is, since he never got properly diagnosed as a child. So my mother got my brother diagnosed as a child. Me, I'm currently in the process of getting my son diagnosed as a child, just so when he gets older, he can have the resources, the outlets that he needs per his disabilities, right? My uncle never got that, okay? Now imagine you were 60 something plus years old. You never got properly diagnosed. People always treated you differently growing up, saying things that they don't know because they're not educated. And obviously you don't know. The only things that you knew is that when you were younger and all through school, you had to take special education classes, which nothing is wrong with special education classes, right? Special education classes is classroom resources where you're learning at a slower pace than from the rest of the students. You need extra help with your work and understanding what the work is and how to do it. But then, like I said, there are some classes where you're further off on the spectrum, where they have to teach you or your student in 15-minute gaps. So I wanted to educate y'all on that, because a lot of people who don't have family members or never taken care of family members who are on the spectrum, who have intellectual disabilities or whatever their disabilities are, a lot of people would look at these folks and call them weird, call them everything under the sun. I remember growing up, I used to get in a lot of fights protecting my brother, because, you know, my brother, and, you know, most people that's on the spectrum, their minds work differently from ours. They see the world in a different light. And, you know, people got to be a little bit more understanding and compassionate. I remember as a kid, the one time my mom let my brother and I go to the park. It was kind of in a bad neighborhood. So a lot of times me and my brother would be inside, you know, playing a video game, watching TV, or we would be subjugated to just playing on the breezeway steps or on the patio, and, you know, enclosed in our own enclosed patio in our apartment. And I remember I begged and pleaded my mom. I was like, Mom, can we please go to the park? And she was like, yeah, take your brother. And I was like, fine, cool. So Paul, my brother Paul, he was playing in the sand, minding his own business. And then he started to see kids go up and down the slide. Me, I'm on the swing set at the time, but I can still see him while I'm swinging. So I'm on the swing set, and I see him getting ready to go up a slide. And when my brother gets to the top of the slide, it was kind of a high slide. Now think of this slide being kind of scary to a 7-year-old who's never gone down a slide before, right? So my brother's at the top of the slide. There's a bunch of kids behind him, and I could tell he froze up. So I got off the swing. I'm making my way towards him. How you doing, officer? I'm making my way towards my brother, and right when I was getting close enough to the sandbox or the playground that we was playing on, the kid behind him pushed my brother down the slide. Now that was dangerous because it was high up. This wasn't no normal slide. This was like a slide that could be at a water park type of slide. It wasn't, I'm trying to think, was it metal? No. Yes, no, that was a metal slide. Metal slide, dead of summer, Texas heat. But also what made that dangerous is because at that slide, there was like a little 2x4 at the top. So my brother was like building up the courage to go down it. And like I said, that was pretty scary slide. So he's trying to build the courage, and then a bigger kid, and I could tell, now this boy probably had to been the same age as me or a little bit older, because he was way taller, or he could have been younger, because there's a lot of younger kids that are tall, that have height. And man, I remember, getting there right as the boy pushed my brother down the slide. Now, I immediately, when I tell you, I immediately saw red. Boy, I ran up the little stairs to get off into the playhouse, pushed all the kids out of the way. I looked at him And I was like, why did you push my brother? He was like, he was taking too long. And I was like, my brother is special needs. See, before all this council culture bullshit and motherfuckers now want to be politically correct with their words and this soft ass generation we're living in right now, that was the term that we used back in the 90s. I'm like, my brother is special needs. Like, why'd you fucking, I'm like, why did you push my brother down the steps? Like, he's not like you or me functionally. Like, he's learning about people socially, being around people more. He's curious and he wants to interact with other kids and play. So, you're a kid, you're young, you're dumb, you don't understand. But for me, because I grew up in a single parent household, me and my brother, predominantly all our lives, I grew up pretty fast because obviously my mom had to go out and work, and this was during a time period and better times where a lot of our parents from our generation, those of us that are damn near pushing 40, we were at home. Our parents would tell us, hey, lock this door, don't answer for nobody, stay near the phone, don't touch the stove, don't answer the door unless it's me or your grandparents. That was the rule back then. Now, man, now you'll get CPS called on you if somebody knows or have an inkling that you left kids behind. But I'm at home by myself, 6-7 years old, watching over my little brother. My mom had to work. She couldn't afford daycare, and there was often times where we couldn't stay at my grandparents' house. So what is your option when you're trying to make it day by day? Hey, lock this door, don't answer it, stay by the phone, don't touch the stove, make your peanut butter sandwiches, make your sandwiches, make your cereal, warm up noodles in a cup in the microwave. That was the extent. Or if my mom already had something cooked and prepared, all I would have to do, take it out the refrigerator, heat it up. In the legendary morning phone calls or afternoon phone calls, hey, take that meat out the freezer so I can come home and cook us some chicken or whatever. It was either chicken or ground beef. Hey, take it out the freezer so by the time I get home, it can be thawed out. And boy, I have to get in close when I tell y'all this. Now, a lot of us at that age, me included, a lot of us at that age, we're like, now I'm gonna play my video game, or I'm gonna finish watching my cartoons. We'll be on the phone with our mama at work telling us, take the meat out. Then we forget. And then literally an hour before your mama get home, 30 minutes before you know your mama is gonna be unlocking that door, you be like, oh shoot, I forgot to take the meat out. But see, lucky for me, because I learned how to cook at a young age. My mom taught me how to cook. She taught me how to cook, clean at a very young age. And I was taking care of my brother while she would be at work. So that's a lot of responsibility for a lot of us who grew up with either a bunch of siblings, or you're the only child, and we had to fend for ourselves at home while our parents or grandparents, because a lot of us too was raised by our grandparents too, had to fend for yourselves when your parents will be at work. So, anyway, I know I'm yapping, but boy, when I tell you I got to the top of them stairs, and he didn't apologize to my brother, because my brother is laying in the sand on his side crying. Now, thank God he didn't slip the wrong way, because from that push, how hard that boy pushed him, my brother could have broke his neck. He could have broke his arm, broke his leg, the way he pushed him off the slide. And my brother didn't slide down the slide when he pushed him. You're 7 feet in the air, getting pushed off of a metal slide. My brother flew off the slide. He didn't slide down it. He flew off. So, guess what I did? Guess what I did? I was like, so since you want to push on people younger and smaller than you, I pushed this dude so fucking hard off that slide, I made him fly 10 feet. And now he's down there crying with my brother. So, now, here comes the part where I didn't realize he had other siblings. Now, if I was to ever get into a fight, my brother wouldn't be able to help me. Right? He wouldn't be able to help. He wouldn't know what to do. So, I got my brother up. I'm dusting the sand off of him. I'm like, you all right? I'm like, bring it in. You good? You okay? You good? I said, I got you. I remember hugging him and kissing on him. And the words that came out of his mouth was, Robin, why did that boy push me off the slide like that? And I said, I don't know, Paul. Impatient, ignorant, you know. I'm hugging on him. And I'm just holding my brother tight. And I didn't want to go in the house immediately to tell my mom what happened, because my mother was already overprotective of me and my brother. Boy, we would be lucky. Boy, we would be lucky if we could spend the night at somebody's house. My mom was that protective. But there was a reason why she was protective. And that was because, you know, I had an older sister that my mom gave birth to. My mom was actually on Channel 4 News way back in the 90s, early 90s. Or was it early 90s? No, it had to been like the 80s or something like that. 80s, 90s. And I was just a baby. I was a toddler. And my sister was born of anencephalic. Basically, like her brain didn't form all the way. And but while my sister was inside of my mom, my sister was alive. But as soon as my mom gave birth to her, 10 minutes later, you know, my older sister died. So my mom had to deal with losing a child and having a miscarriage from being in an abusive marriage with my father at the time. So my father was an alcoholic. I don't think he was doing drugs yet, but he might have been. I'm not sure. My dad was very abusive, alcoholic, and luckily my mom was strong enough to get herself out of that situation and take me and my brother far away from his dysfunctional self and his side of the family at that time. Because there was a couple of times, you know, kids being watched at my other grandmother's house my dad, my uncles on my dad's side was not watching the kids. They would be outside, you know, probably drinking, smoking, doing whatever. And kids, we would be in the house. I remember distinctively telling my mom that I was so scared, and this is something that stuck with me. I remember being so freaking scared that I didn't want to leave the living room. And once my mom found that out and found out how reckless they were, my mom didn't allow me nor my brother to ever go back over there. I put it to you like that. And then shortly after that, or a little bit before that, I don't know if this happened before I was born or after I was born or as I'm a kid, but same situation. One of my cousins, they wasn't watching my cousin walk right into the street, get hit by a car. Houseway. Where are the adults? You know? So my mom said, hell no, hell the fuck no. Y'all not going back over there. Which I was okay with, because I went, like, at the age that I was at the time, wasn't no kids really over there in that neighborhood for me to play with. So yeah. And then so going back to my brother, so I'm hugging on him, and his siblings roll up. They start pushing me while I'm holding my brother. So I put Paul behind me. I'm like, Paul, get behind me. And see, you know, during my generation, we were at a generation of watching all things wrestling. Boy, when I tell you I was prepared to do some stone cold stunners, putting people in the cripple of crossface, putting people in the walls of Jericho, your girl was ready. So about 4 of them walk up to me. It was like two that was way older, but they were like slightly taller. But I could tell these were probably the 2 oldest siblings. So they're pushing on me. They're like, why you push my brother? Da, 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 da. And I was like, oh, so y'all gonna sit here and act like your brother didn't push my brother off this damn slide and he could have broke his neck? And then so my neighbor next door, Carlos, I remember Carlos. This is also the same boy that saved my life from drowning in a swimming pool. I had a cool ass next door neighbor, Mary and Carlos. I used to play with them any little chance that I could when my mom would allow me and Pa to go outside. So Carlos runs over there. Now Carlos was an older kid. He was a bigger kid. And I want to say Carlos was probably already in middle school while me and my brother was in elementary school. Carlos comes over there. He grabs me and Paul. He's like, Robin, you all right? And I was like, no, like, they trying to jump me because I'm sticking up for my brother. Now, luckily Carlos was there and other kids at the park was there, and they was trying to tell their sibling, yeah, your brother pushed her brother off the slide. Yep, he sure did. We saw it. So in defense, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna push his ass off the slide so he don't do that no more. And so the other kids one of the younger siblings, I think, had ran off to get their mom. Mind you, still at this point, I didn't go in the house. I didn't get my mom. I didn't tell. And then I think Carlos looked at me. He was like, "Want me to get your mom?" I'm like, "No." I said, "Do not get my mom." Because that would have been a situation where my mom probably would have got into it with the other adult. And my mom would have told me and Paul to get in the house. And I didn't want to go in the house because we hardly went outside. Like, real talk. My mom was that protective. And so their mom the boy's mom comes outside. She was like, "Who pushed my son?" I wasn't scared. I wasn't disrespectful, because my mom taught me never to be disrespectful to adults. You say yes ma'am, no ma'am, things of that nature. So she came over. She was like, "You pushed my son off that slide?" Like, she was very emotional. She was very, she was ready. And I said, "Yes ma'am, I did." And she was like, "Where are your mama?" I'm like, "My mama's in the house." But I told her, I said, "If you allow me to explain why I pushed your son off the slide." So I explained to her. I said, "Ma'am, my brother is special needs. And this is kind of like his real first interactions, being outside, being around other kids, playing, exploring. He got to the top of the slide. He got scared. He froze up. I told her, I said, I was on my way to the slide to either help him slide down or guide him back off so, the other kids can go down the slide. But I told her, I said, before I could get there, I said, your son pushed my brother off of the slide. And I said, my brother feet was not planted properly. I said, my brother could have gotten really, really hurt. So, yes, ma'am, unfortunately, I did push your son off the slide. And I pushed him with enough force so he wouldn't do that again. In that moment, and then like all the rest of the kids, back in the day, we were, kids would tell on, kids will tell on you, baby. The innocence of kids. Thank God there was a bunch of kids around that actually could back me up. They were like, yes, ma'am, your son pushed him off the slide, and that's why she did what she did. And so she turned around, she looked at her son, and she said, all of y'all get y'all asses in the house. And I was like, oop. And she looked at me. She looked at Paul. She said, baby, I'm so sorry. And she said, you did the right thing for sticking up for your brother. Because that's what I teach my kids. You look out for your siblings. You have their back. Now, granted, his brothers and sisters were in the wrong, but they stuck by his side nonetheless. So me and Paul, we resumed playing. I look at Carlos. I said, Carlos, please don't tell my mama. Please don't tell my mama. I said, I don't want to go back in the house. I'm like, you know how my mama is. And he was like, true. I know how your mama is. Everybody, no matter where we moved to, no matter where we lived, my mom had a presence on her, baby. But she had to have that presence as a woman, as a single mother who was doing it by herself. She had to have that intimidating look on her face so people wouldn't fuck with her. I developed that face over time later. It's that, you know, you walk with confidence, walk with your head up, pay attention to your surroundings. If you see men in the area, you have a look on your face that'll say, you better not, or it's going down in GTA, if y'all know what I mean. So even with me, growing up as a teenager, as a young adult, as a young lady who had to ride the bus by herself, would be getting off of work late. Oh, I kept that thing on me. And take that how you want to take it. I told my mom, I said, Mom, I stay strapped. You ain't got to worry about me. And we in the state of Texas, a stand your ground state. I keep that thing on me. I wish a hit of wood. So, anyway. Their mom comes back with popsicles. Now, they're not open. They wasn't tampered with. In hindsight, as a kid, that was probably dumb for me to take those popsicles. But back then versus now, we didn't really have to worry about stuff like that. Worry about adults kidnapping kids in GTA. We didn't have to worry about adults poisoning kids in GTA. We didn't have to worry about as many PDFs. Now, that's not to say that they didn't exist, but the PDFs back then, baby, they wanted to stay hidden. The PDFs now, in the era of where everything is recorded, Discord messages, Facebook messages are recorded, video games is recorded. Y'all dumb. and that even goes for the YNs who are in gangs. Now listen, I'm gonna say this, and as your auntie, as an older adult who came up during I would say we had gangs and stuff back then, but our gangs wasn't nowhere near as bad as gangs now. Like, at least the gangs back then, they had respect. There was rules. There was, remember the one time I tried to get recruited. This is my senior year, high school. Everybody knew me as the basketball player, the track player, basketball star. Oh, that girl's going to the WNBA. Everybody knew who I was. They're like, nah, don't mess with Robin. She cool. Like, y'all leave her alone. On some... Now, I know what y'all thinking. Man, you only see that type of stuff in the movies. Man, back in the 90s, early 2000s, it was structured. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, the kids in the neighborhoods, we knew who the drug dealers were. We knew who the D-boys were. We knew who the gang members were. But guess what? We minded our business. And I was taught not to be around the homies for too long, because you never know what could go off. Guilty by association, being at the wrong place at the wrong time, bullets is flying. Bullet ain't got no name on nobody, right? So I grew up with a lot of people who sold drugs in GTA, who were gang members in GTA, who have committed some real crimes in GTA. I knew who they were, But I feel like back then they were still carrying on that culture of the whole purpose for gangs to begin with, which is, you know, police. Some police was a mofo back then. So having gangs in the neighborhood, that was a way how we protected our communities, our neighborhoods. I don't condone violence. I don't condone, well, I'm putting it like this. I don't condone unnecessary violence. I don't condone poisoning your own community. But at the same token, I can't be the one to judge said individuals as far as the choices that they made and why they had to make them. Everybody has a story. Everybody has a reason. And now, granted, you might not understand it, but for them, it made sense. Like, you can never tell somebody growing up in a hostile environment not to protect themselves. You know, the only thing that I'm seeing now, especially with a lot of up and coming rappers who have a gift and a talent of making music and providing a way out of those dangerous environments. My message to y'all, if you ever come across this video and you watch it long enough, in the generation of short attention spans and short form content, if y'all ever make it across this video, and if you are one of those lucky individuals that have a talent that's living in a very not good environment, when you're able to get out of that environment, leave it alone. Don't go back to it. Okay? Nothing's good is gonna come out of still trying to be in the streets while you're making hundreds of thousands of dollars, potentially millions. That shit ain't cute. Because now guess what? You locked up. Now you can't provide for your kids if you have any. Now you can't help your mom and them, your granny and them, because you decided to stay in the streets. No. When you find your thing that gets you out of a bad situation and you move out of the hood, I'm not saying don't go back. I'm not saying don't get back to the community. I'm not saying don't do that. But definitely you have to be careful. Because as we could see, people like Nipsey Hussle, for example, stayed in his hood, gave back to the community, and only for him to meet and end how he met, which is crazy. You know? But definitely, if you do reach that type of level of success, of stardom, you definitely have to move out of that environment. Yes, elevate, provide resources to your hood, to the place where you grew up, the place that made you, yes. Help your people, yes. But don't linger. And this is advice that I had to give to my other brother, Roderick. So, unfortunately, my other brother, he stayed in an environment that my mom took me and Paul out of. So, me being his older sister, I'll never forget it. I told him, I said, I wasn't there for you. I said, but I'm here now. But like, that didn't have really anything to do with me. Like, because I stayed in contact with my brother on and off throughout the years. But what I be telling him now, I'm like, boy, you be changing phones like you change your underwear. You know that Kevin Gates song, I got 2 phones? Man, this year alone, the amount of phones that my brother has went through, ridiculous. Ridiculous. I'm like, is this your number? Okay, keep it, please. But back then, my brother was in a gang. He was probably selling drugs. He probably shot somebody in GTA. He's probably done a lot of things, because for him to go from almost a 3-strike you're out type of person, with him having a bunch of kids, I was one of the ones, and I'm not saying that he didn't have other people probably telling him the same stuff, like his mom. So me and my other brother, same dad, different moms. Okay, in case if that wasn't already established. Same dad, different moms. I told him, I said, with your God-given gifts and talents. Now, this was back when he was 16. He was 16. And I was, how old was I? 18, 19, 20. I'm 21. So there's a 4-year age gap between me and Broderick, 3-year age gap between me and Paul. I'm 21. He's 16, 17. And this is probably when he was heavily in them streets. I told him then, I said, bro, you're very talented as a rapper, music wise. I said, you don't want to waste that gift being in jail. So I've had the conversations I've had on and off with him. I'm telling him, I'm like, hey, you can't do nothing for your kids if you in jail. You can't do nothing for your mom or for dad if you're in jail. You got too many kids, bro, to be out here, be getting hot-headed over a single instance or a single moment that can have you locked up for the rest of your life. And that's what I told him. And ever since then, the talks that I've had with him, and I'm quite sure his mom and dad, in a way, and other people that's on that side of the family that I really don't have a relationship with, but I know that we're cousins, I know we're family, but I don't have a relationship with them because my mom kept me away from chaos. So yeah, like, we're living in a world where the police ain't gotta do too much. All they gotta do is go through your social media accounts, go through your messages, listen through your phones, through your electronic devices, to build a case. And then what? Then, like, then it's like, what are we really doing out here? Whew. I think I did my 5,000 steps, y'all. I think I did it and then some, because it's been over an hour and I've been yapping. But I appreciate y'all walking with me on this hot, humid, sunny Texas day. This disrespectful ass heat. I'm gonna go in the house. I'm gonna shower. Eat something, take my black girl vitamins, and get ready to stream and get back to it. Thank y'all for watching and listening for however long you stuck with this video. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Much love. Peace.